My task in this segment is to show you how to put this Jetstream together. And the first thing that I always do when I'm working with teachers and students as well is put together something I call a built example. It's nothing more than the plane as I expect to see it when I'm finished. And I like to have one of these on my desk so that when students come up and they ask me a million questions, which as we know all students do, is this right? Is this right? They want to know, is this correct? I usually have it available and I say, well, make it look like mine. If you can make it look like mine, then it probably will be right. It's a good thing to do because it increases their powers of observation. So I always like to have a built example of the final product handy. So the first step, other than having my built example handy, is to obviously take things out of the package and make sure that everything is here. And a little quick inventory will reveal that I have something called a motor stick by modelers. It's also called a fuselage. It's what holds the whole plane together. The pieces here, this is called a horizontal stabilizer. It's part of the tail feathers. It keeps the plane steady as it moves through the air. We have the vertical fin, which is this part right here. It also keeps the plane on course. And so I'm going to discard the other pieces, including the pilot. We won't need the pilot. This plane flies on a tether. It does rather well by itself, as you shall soon see. My first step is to take what I call the ballerina twist out of the legs. I think they do this to make it fit in the package. That's what they do. And if I can twist this the right way, you will see what I mean. These are the landing gear wheels and legs. It doesn't work very well if it has that twist in it. The next step I will do shortly here is insert, and I want to make sure you see that clearly. This slides neatly. Here's the motor, the hanging motor hook itself with the propeller. I should show you that clearly so you know which way is up and down. The hook is below, and these landing gear legs slide into this clever little slot that they've designed so that it sticks carefully inside there. That's all you have to do. But the trick here is to make sure that you have the right side up on the fuselage, and that's easy to do because this slot right here is where the pilot would have gone, and if I flip it over, you'll notice down here is the motor hook. This is where our rubber band motor will eventually attach. So this is the front or the top of the airplane, and if I turn it over like this, I'm going to line it up and push these together, and I'll do this I'll hold it up clearly so you can see the orientation. It's not hard at all. This is the top of the airplane, the back of the airplane. The motor is going to be underslung here. And just to be safe, let me just give you a quick lesson on CA glue or instant glue or super glue as some people call it. If I'm having children do this, I might have them use a white glue. It takes much longer to dry, but for purposes of this explanation and this demonstration this afternoon, I want to move rather quickly. So I'm going to put a drop, just a drop, doesn't take much of this stuff, on either side, if you don't get stuck as I did, to the glue itself, which is why we don't use it with children that often. What that does is hold this motor bracket in place so that as we work with it flying around the pylon, this doesn't come loose. It doesn't, because there's so much tension on it from the rubber band motor, we want this firmly anchored in place. Okay, next step is to assemble, slide the wing through the wing slot. I'll hold it up so you can see it. And what I do to get it done easily and quickly is just start it. This wing is made of balsa, as is the whole plane, and it's pretty flexible, but it won't take great punishment. So I choke up, make sure you see that, and work the wing into position toward the center. I don't push it, in other words, from this side. It's a sure way to break it. An easy thing to do is just move it gently into the center and center the wing for the time being in the slot. In other words, not too far back, not too far forward. You're going to learn a bit about center of gravity later in moving this wing, but we want the wing to slide freely so that it can be adjusted. Then the first part of the tail feathers goes in. This is the horizontal stabilizer, so named because it stabilizes the plane horizontally, and the vertical fin gets put in that slot as it is here. And what I also do here is just put a drop, and I mean a tiny drop of the CA glue If the students are doing it by themselves, they would use Elmer's here. Just touch it and it will hold the tail feathers together. This plane was going to take quite a bit of punishment, and you don't want the tail feathers flying off during any of these experiments. So I have fore and aft the underslung motor hook here. You'll note that every one of these airplanes, Jetstreams, comes with a rubber band motor, a blue or a green motor. This is not really very good rubber, and as you will learn shortly, we have a much more plastic, can we say, much more flexible tan rubber that's used in competition by modelers. In contrast to what I just did here, this is about its max stretch. Look at the difference between the two. This can be stretch wound, and as you will see when Art does the next segment, who shows you how to wind this rubber motor, we will get much more performance out of it than we would if we used the stock rubber that comes with the airplane. Before I finish my segment here, I also need to show you how to put together this pylon around which this airplane flies. So let's put everything back together and clean up my workspace here a bit. All I'm going to need for that is a block of wood. Simple piece of pine does it. And the way I'm going to assemble it here so you can see it, I cut first using the scissors a short piece of soda straw, shorter than the nail itself. And the first thing, I'm going to make a little sandwich here. The first thing that goes in the sandwich is a washer. The next thing is a common paper clip, which I put in. The third thing is another washer. See if I can do this carefully. I think I got a little bit of that glue stuck on my fingers, so everything wants to stick to my hands now. And we then thread the straw onto the nail. Notice that a bit of the nail protrudes, and I have cleverly already made a hole for myself here so that I don't make this too difficult. It just needs to be tapped together, not too firmly, because you've got to have a bit of play in the paper clip so that it will freely rotate around the pylon. I made this a little bit ahead of time so that you could see where we're going with this. All of our lessons, or I should say the majority of the lessons, are based around this pylon racer. And all that's necessary to do now is to find a handy wastebasket, some sort of tall, even a tall box will work, and tape this block to the bottom of the wastebasket upside down. And you'll need probably about 4 meters approximately of space in which to fly this, because the whole operation here is flown on a 2-meter string. Now, the way we attach the string is the final step here for the pylon racer. To do that, all I need to do is tape, using common masking tape, a paper clip to the trailing edge of the inboard wing. And that, I don't mean to use a lot of fancy terminology here, but this is the wing that's going to fly closest to the pylon. It's going to go around the pylon in a left-hand direction, so I need to securely fasten the paper clip on the left lower corner so it looks like this. And in order to keep that wing in place so it doesn't turn sideways because of the centripetal force or any of the other forces on the airplane, I'm going to put a bit of Scotch tape on the outboard wing right next to the fuselage. That will keep the wing in place so that it doesn't turn sideways as you're flying and doing the experiments. But at the same time, it gives you plenty of flexibility to be able to move this wing back and forth when you want to adjust the center of gravity. So that little bit of tape there is all you need to keep everything in place. So I think we're about ready to fly.